We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. And how about that Tuesday? I always say that every week that comes along, there's always some crazy shit happening. And Tuesday was one of those days. We know that Kevin McCarthy had his position, or he was vacated from the Speaker of the House. Kevin McCarthy is no longer Speaker of the House, much to my surprise. I have to own up to the fact that when I've talked here on the podcast or even on TikTok, I didn't believe that Matt Gaetz would have enough votes to kick him out the door, but they did. I thought there might be some help from the Democratic Party, and I think Matt Gaetz thought the Democratic Party would help McCarthy too, because before the vote, Matt Gaetz seemed a little unsure. He said something like, well, I'm not even sure it's going to work, but even if it doesn't, I'm going to call for it every other day. So he wasn't sure what was going on. And I think he was surprised that the Democrats just stepped back and watched it happen. In fact, every Democrat voted against Kevin McCarthy. There were 8 people that were Republicans that voted against Kevin McCarthy. And I think he had 5 that he could deal with. So they went well over the point, the tipping point for Kevin McCarthy. Anyway, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Donald Trump got a gag order from yet another judge, this one in New York, Judge Engoron. That's interesting. We'll talk more about that too. But I have a lot of emails, so I should probably get right to the emails to start things off. First one comes to us from Garage Door Jeff. He says, hi, Boomer. You mentioned not knowing about Chi Square. Yeah, Jeff wrote a note to me the other day, maybe it was yesterday, and I said he made a reference to something called Chi Square, C-H-I. I said, I don't know what the fuck that is. And he explains it's a thing we learned in statistics class for measuring statistical significance. I may be misusing it, but its definition is as follows. Parsons' chi-squared test is used to determine whether there is a statistically significant difference between the expected frequencies and the observed frequencies in one or more categories of a contingency table. Best, Garage Door Jeff. You may be surprised to know, Jeff, that I did not take statistics in school. I wasn't a dumb guy. I did pretty well, but statistics was more a little more intelligent, a little more nerdy than I was. They know all about that shit. I don't know much about statistics, at least in the academic form. I think maybe I do in the street form, if you will. But thank you for clarifying that. I'll now be able to sleep tonight, Jeff. Thank you. Next one says, hi, Mike. I'm not sure if you saw my message in Instagram Messenger sent last Tuesday. If so, and you already read it, then go ahead and skip this email. I had a hard time finding your email last week, found it today and sent on IG Messenger. I missed a show or two, so you may have already read my message. Well, I can tell you right now, I didn't read the message. I need to tell you folks something. If you want to get in touch with me, my email is the best option, rationalboomer@gmail.com. I do have a lot of stuff on Instagram, probably the same stuff as I have on TikTok, and I get stuff from Instagram Messenger quite a lot. Generally, it's a bunch of young, scantily clad women that say they want to talk to me, or people that want me to join the fucking Illuminati. I don't read the Instagram messages all that much. It's like the comments on my TikToks. I feel bad about it, but I put out a lot of TikToks and there's a lot of views and a lot of comments. The likelihood that I'm going to read all of them is 0. I try to read as many as I can and respond when I can, but as you know, and as I've said before, I'm a lazy motherfucker, so I probably don't do it. I'm surprised it was hard to find my email, though, because I think I put it out there a lot. Anyway, maybe not. But anybody who wants to contact me, My email is the best way to do it. It's the one place you'll be sure that I see it. rationalboomer@gmail.com. Anyway, the message I didn't get is as follows. Hey, Mike, good evening to you and hope your day was a good one. This fourth email I have put together over the last 6 months, but this will be the first one sent. The other three were so long, so I decided to just start off with a simple short one and hopefully just add to your show periodically. Now, I will tell you up front, you're thinking too much. Write the note and send it. Don't worry about if it's too long. I get a lot of long ones. I got one coming from Old Soul in this show that's way long, but she has a lot to say and it's interesting to read and a lot of valuable information. And I would presume you have the same thing. So I've had other people say, I wrote a note and I didn't. Just fucking send it. It doesn't matter. I'm just a guy reading emails. Just send whatever email you want to send me. Don't worry about it being perfect or punctuated properly. I don't worry about that shit. I'm not that kind of guy. Anyway, I love the engagement you have with your supporters by reading their emails daily and having them on the show. This is just one of the reasons I don't want to send a super long email. Yeah. You're thinking too much. Just fucking do it. I know you said you're good with long emails, but I just wouldn't feel right taking up all the podcast with one email. Now, here's the deal. I kind of go along the guidelines of 1 hour with TikTok or with the podcast, but you know as well as I do, frequently I go over that 1 hour. Sometimes I go closer to 2 hours. It's rare, but I do it. And it just goes back to what I've always said. There are no guidelines or constraints I have with the podcast. My fucking show will do it my fucking way, and I'll go as long as it takes. So don't worry about taking up too much time. I know you said you're good with long emails, but okay. I wanted to first and foremost say thank you to you and all your listeners and supporters. Feels so incredible to not feel alone in the shitstorm. I have so much gratitude for your time sifting through all the news daily and presenting what we need to know. I haven't watched mainstream media for a few decades. As a child, my parents watched a good hour of news before they left for work each day, and then another hour and a half at night. I didn't realize until I was an adult with children how much anxiety it caused me as a child and vowed to never expose them to that amount and level of media. I get my news these days by TikTok podcasters, and some simple daily news emails. Between you, Michael Moore, and the like-minded supporters, I have regained some hope that those who cause harm will eventually confront their consequences as long as we are patient. I also have found peace that there are others that believe as I do. The simple belief that there are more of us good souls walking this planet than bad, and at some point, good will win. Keep up the good work, and for fuck's sake, never stop cussing. My father used the word fuck when he was happy, sad, mad, you name it. It flowed like a river in our household. We lost him over a year ago, so it brings me comfort. I'm sorry for your loss. Take much care and more to add soon. From Soul, not Old Soul, Soul, also known as Mom, Wife, Gen Xer, Grizz, or Shannon. Grizz? I need to know how you got the nickname Grizz. That's interesting. Like I say, don't think so much. You write something, send it. If it's 2 lines, 2 paragraphs, or 2 pages, I don't give a fuck. The point of it is to hear what's on your mind and have you participate in the program. If you've got more to offer, that's fine. That's great. I don't have any restrictions on this show. I don't have people standing over my shoulder. Oh, that's too long. You can't read that. Even if I did, I'd tell them to fuck off. But don't worry about it. Don't think so much. All right. The next email. Boomer, Mike, recently I was hanging out with 3 friends shooting the shit when I mentioned that a continuing resolution had just been passed by Congress. I mentioned that I was upset that the bill did not include money for Ukraine. One of my friends, who happens to be a loyal Republican and probably still a Trumper, said that I should be aware that Ukraine was a bunch of Nazis, and he's all right with the lack of Ukraine money in the bill. I should tell you that this man is very intelligent. Well, you wouldn't know it by what he's saying. Kind, generous man in every aspect, except when it comes to politics. I can't explain why he's still a Republican. My guess is that he's too stubborn to think things through and change his mind. Anyway, after I stubbornly replied, there are Nazis in every country and military in the world, including Russia and the USA, and that bullshit is nothing but Putin propaganda. He went on to say that it is well documented, and then changed direction, saying the biggest problem with giving Ukraine money and weapons is because he has read about all the corruption in Ukraine, and he doesn't want the U.S. to give Ukraine another penny until we implement a detailed audit of everything we have given them. I would just tell him this. Well, there's plenty of Nazis in the fucking Republican Party. There's plenty of corruption and criminality in our government, particularly with the Republicans. Maybe we should get an audit of all the people in the Republican Party, those that are Nazis, those that are criminals and corrupt. Maybe we should expose them too. He goes on to say, I said that I support scrutiny in our foreign aid, and the subject changed. The point of this story is how very effective right-wing media is to get so many people to believe Putin propaganda and other misinformation. I think that it is very important to address this problem with the new laws regarding news media to replace the fairness doctrine that Reagan killed. What are your thoughts? Max. I've talked about this a lot. I think one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest causes of divisiveness in this country is the media, because depending on what you watch, you're getting a different story than everybody else. If you watch Fox or OAN or whatever the fuck it is, or Newsmax, you're getting part of the story and not all the facts. If you get MSNBC, CNN, you might get most of the facts, but not all the facts. And there'll be a slant to that as well. It used to be that we had journalism. We don't have journalism anymore. Take a look at the definition of journalism, and none of these outlets really fit that definition. And because we're all ill-informed, that causes the divisiveness in this country. I think that when the Georgia trial starts, that's going to be a big help, because a lot of people are going to be watching that, and there's not going to be any slant to it. It's going to be straightforward information, facts, evidence, news, and all of that. And then, assuming some Trump-fucks watch this, they aren't going to be able to deny it because they're watching the actual trial. That said, I think there's a certain amount of brainwashing that's gone on. We always say that the Trump-fucks are a cult, and in real terms, they are a cult. And what we know about cult members, you can't just pull them out the door and say, okay, now you're not of this cultish mind anymore. There has to be a process, or at least some time, for them to regain their senses. And apparently, it doesn't matter if people are smart and educated or stupid and rednecks. They all have the capability of being hoodwinked or gaslighted, like these people have. I've said this so many times. I've said this as early as 4 years ago. How can you possibly vote or support the Republican Party, specifically Donald Trump, after all we've seen and heard that has been done? But that goes back to what I said with regards to the media. If they haven't seen it, I mean, I've experienced that. I've had debates with Trump-fucks, and I'll point something out, and they'll look at me like they never heard it. And then I realize it's because they haven't. Is that the Republicans' fault or the Democrats' fault? No, it's the media. We put too much trust in the media. We assume they're going to do the right thing, whether you're watching Fox News and you're a fan of them, or MSNBC. The whole point of me doing this Rational Boomer thing was I realized what they were doing. I'd watch left side media and they do what they had to do to scare you and make you nervous, but there was more to the story. Um, they made you believe that there was no hope. It was Armageddon ahead. And I realized when I looked at what was going on and I dug deeper into the facts that there's some hope. And I'll be honest with you, in this country, for we the people, the moment there is no hope, it's over. So somebody has to bring out all the facts and offer some hope. And whether I did it purposely or inadvertently, that's what we've kind of done with the Rational Boomer podcast. I give you as much as the facts I have, and then I kind of analyze it. What does this mean? And this goes back to, I don't know if you call it a psychosis or a neurosis that I have from when I was a little kid. Every time I come across a problem, or it's weird. My wife will always say to me, "What are you doing?" Because she'll see me moving my hands and I'm not paying attention. If I have a problem, or if I'm just coming up with a TikTok, if I have an idea for a TikTok in my head, I'll play it out in my head and I'll play out every option that could happen, especially if it's a problem. I'll look at the problem in my head and I'll say, okay, what if I do this? What's the result going to be? And then I'll pick a couple of other options. So when it comes to attending to that problem or doing that TikTok, I know exactly what's going to happen, regardless of which way it goes. It's weird. It sounds crazy. And it sounds like it would mess up your head. It doesn't me because I'm so used to it. So I do that with the news stories. I look at it and I see the problem and I say, okay, what's the way out? What's the answer? What's the resolution to this problem? And then I come up with an analysis. And if you use logic and common sense, you're more often than not right. Occam's razor. So that's what I do with the Rational Boomer podcast and the TikToks and such. And you're absolutely right. Our media is fucked. Our media has put us in a bad situation. I don't even know how we fix that. But you're absolutely right, too. It all began with the fairness doctrine with Ronald Reagan, because it used to be, you had to give equal time and there were rules and regulations to doing news, and that was all taken away. And the moment people found out that you could make money with news in the media, it became all tabloid shit. Back in the day when CBS or NBC or somebody did the news, it never made money. It wasn't sensational enough or sexy enough. And I think it happened, when we had the hostages in Iraq. Ted Koppel came out with Nightline. It was going to be a temporary show, but he was on every night during the whole time these hostages were held. That was the moment they realized that, hey, shit, we can make money on this. People are really interested about the intrigue, the tumult, the scandal, or the sensationalism of it all. And that point, media outlets got the light bulb and they said, let's make some money. And we don't give a fuck about journalism anymore. All right, the next email. Thank you, Max, by the way. Hi, Mike. Donald Trump needs to be held in contempt of court. The judge told the dipshit to quit speaking about his staff, either online or publicly. When is enough going to be enough? All he does is rant about how anything that doesn't go his way is somehow fraudulent or rigged, even when it is something stupid like his attorneys didn't request the jury trial. I wonder if his attorneys told him that they needed to file a request a jury, and Trump, being Trump, said no because he didn't understand the implications. It's possible that he didn't want a jury because he thinks he can scream about it being rigged and somehow win on an appeal because he didn't get a jury. It's interesting. Civil trials are different than criminal trials. I think criminal trials, you have to have a jury, but in civil trials, it's an option. And was it intentional? I don't know. I think you're giving Donald too much credit for thinking ahead and being strategic. I think his lawyer, Alina Habba, who's kind of a half-ass lawyer, because that's all Donald Trump can get now. She fucked up. It's simple as that. Everybody wants to make it a conspiracy theory. Oh, does he have a different angle? No, Donald Trump fucks up all the time. His lawyers fuck up all the time. So, yeah, I think he just fucked up. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot about what Donald Trump said about the current trial that's happening now. And we'll talk about more of that in a little bit. The emailer goes on to say, I was a little surprised that Kevin McCarthy got ousted as a speaker. We'll be talking more about that, of course. I expected the Democrats to help keep him as speaker. Hopefully, they get a new speaker chosen soon. The Democrats are going to have to help the Republicans out of this mess at some point. Kevin said he's not going to run for speaker again. I heard him say that. Why would he? He just fucking lost. Does he think somehow magically he's going to win again? That's troubling to me. I don't know who in the Republican caucus can get the speaker's job. The only way they could probably get a speaker involves the Democrats. As much as I want to believe in miracles, I don't see any way that Hakeem Jeffrey should become speaker unless some reasonable Republicans decide it's the only way to get anything done. Until there is a new speaker, nothing else can get done, and we only have 40 days or so till the government shuts down. Hopefully, most of the voters are paying attention so they understand how dangerous it is to give power to the Republicans. Well, here's something I didn't know, and maybe you don't either. There is going to be an interim Speaker of the House, somebody to just fill the spot. And I think his name is Patrick McHenry. He's a Republican out of North Carolina, and he sounds like a dipshit too. So things still can get done. But who they're going to elect, I don't know. I don't know that there's anybody that can get 218 votes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And I'm a little surprised that Democrats didn't step in, because Kevin McCarthy is so easy to manipulate and easy to play. But I'm sure the Democrats figured out this. Matt Gaetz is vermin. He's a pest. And Matt Gaetz said, if he doesn't get kicked out this time, I'll just do it again and again and again and again. So they figured, fuck it. Let the Republicans do this to themselves. It will do nothing but hurt them for the 2024 election. So they're just sitting back and saying, there's not much we can do. Let them fuck themselves over. And that's pretty much what they're going to do. They have an image or a perception now that they're in chaos. They don't know what they're fucking doing. And frankly, that works in the benefit of the Democrats when we get to the presidential election and when we start getting people campaigning for the House. It'll be helpful to the Democrats. Here's the interesting thing that I found, though. We got this extension, this continuing resolution, giving him 45 days. Right now, we're at 42 days. And the House of Representatives is now taking the rest of the week off until next Wednesday, and then they'll start fresh, as they say. So 7 days from now, if it's 42 now, that puts us at 35 days. We got to come up with a plan for the budget and appropriations. Prior to that, they had like 6 months to come to some deal, and they spent all the time trying to impeach Joe Biden to no avail. These people don't want to do anything. And I'll guarantee you this, whoever is the Speaker of the House, they're going to have the same problems that Kevin McCarthy had. Not because they're dumb or anything like that. The big problem is the Republican Party is so divided. They can't come to terms on anything. I mean, you think about this. When we were listening to the vote earlier yesterday, we had Republicans fighting with one another. They're still fighting with one another. We're going into a presidential election season. They aren't even addressing the Democrats at this point. The few times they do, like with the impeachment, it goes nowhere. This party is in disarray and they're in deep trouble and they know it. All right. This email wraps up by saying, lastly, I want to remind everyone of the test of the emergency text message system scheduled for the 4th today at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. This message will happen regardless of whether or not your phone is silent. For those with a hidden phone, it should be turned off prior to the alert. It should only be turned back on when you're alone, as it will sound the minute you turn the phone on. Thanks, Eric. Now, Eric, why would somebody have a hidden phone? That sounds a little sketchy. Yeah, I've heard about this test. And if you watch TikTok, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about the text. They're going to invade your phones. They're going to control you. I'm so fucking tired of this. They kept telling us, oh, September 23rd, some shit's going to go down. Well, I was there. Nothing happened. And they do what religious people do. Oh, it happened. You just didn't realize it, or you're not on the right fuck you. Anyway, yeah, that's happening today. So be aware of that. All right. I actually have two from Old Soul. This one is a short one. Hey, Boomer, I think I underestimated Matt Gaetz by getting rid of McCarthy. He can now use a play straight out of Trump's playbook. If the ethics boards move forward with his investigation, he can now say it's political. Republicans are now doing this because he ousted McCarthy. Do you think that this is his motivation, or am I giving him too much credit? Thanks, Boomer, Old Soul. Yeah, I think you're probably giving him too much credit, although he's a little more sketchy and a little more conniving than the average dumbfuck Republican. So maybe that there's something to that. But the reasonable minded Republicans missed the boat here. They need to at some point separate themselves from MAGA. By taking Kevin McCarthy out of his position, they just gave MAGA more power. Had they kept him in, had they gotten the votes to keep him in, that would have pretty much wounded MAGA. And this is why whenever I talk about MAGA, I say the whole Republican Party's MAGA. You have the MAGA or the Freedom Caucus, but then you have these people that buckle to them, bend over to them, or just afraid of them. As far as I'm concerned, they are MAGA. It's like what I've said about Donald Trump. If you support Donald Trump, you can't tell me you're not racist, because if you support a racist, you are a racist. There's no two ways about it. I know some Republicans like to look at this differently. Well, I'm not a racist, but I like Donald Trump's ideas. No, you're a fucking racist. If you like Donald Trump's ideas, one of those ideas is racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism. If you support him, you are one of them. All right, next email. Hey, Mike, what a week, and it's only Tuesday when I write this. What a fucking clown show these House Republicans are. Part of me felt bad for Kevin. Then I remembered he didn't vote to certify Biden's 2020 win, and he tried to hamper January 6th committee investigation. Then runs to Trump to kiss his ass after calling him out for January 6th. Dems don't owe that ass kisser nothing. Then I see this about the new temp speaker, McHenry, kicking Pelosi out of her office, knowing full well she's out of town attending Feinstein's funeral. I got a story about that. We'll talk about that in a bit. What another a-hole. I hope these so-called conservatives eat their own. Was a bit surprised that they didn't vote to save Kevin, but can understand why. He trash-talked them after they saved his ass twice from having shutdowns. I thought we could get stuff done with him, but this is a new step. Going to be crazy to see if they can even nominate and get the votes for someone new. Republicans have issues, and it goes deeper than McCarthy and his buddy Gaetz. The story about this new temporary Speaker of the House kicking Nancy Pelosi out of her office. I don't understand what that's about. So, the emailer sent me a link, and I'm just going to go through it real quickly because I need to know what the fuck's going on here. Story comes from Mediaite. Mere hours after taking over as Speaker pro tempore with the ouster of Representative Kevin McCarthy on Tuesday, Representative Patrick McHenry ordered former Speaker Nancy Pelosi to vacate her office by Wednesday. He said, please vacate the space tomorrow. The room will be rekeyed. An email sent to Pelosi's office, viewed by Politico, stated the email added that the room will be used for the Speaker's office use. Well, Patrick, you're not even really the fucking Speaker, so I maybe wouldn't get too hyped up about it. Pelosi is currently using a hideaway office, which only a handful of members receive, given that she is Speaker Emeritus. McCarthy allowed Pelosi to occupy the space. McHenry, who is a McCarthy ally, is clearly less keen on it. She slammed the move, calling it a sharp departure from tradition. Pelosi may have some difficulty leaving the office by tomorrow, as Pelosi is in San Francisco attending memorial services for her friend and former Senator Dianne Feinstein, who died last week. Sadly, because I'm in California to mourn the loss of and pay tribute to my dear friend Dianne Feinstein, I'm unable to retrieve my belongings at this time, said Pelosi, who missed Tuesday's vote, which McCarthy was ousted. I gotta tell you, she is an 80-year-old woman, but I would not fuck with Nancy Pelosi. She's not the Speaker of the House anymore, but she got some tricks. And this fucking clown, Patrick McHenry, is going to be dealing with some shit when she gets back. She's got a lot of friends too on both sides of the aisle. So that email comes to us from Jace, and I want to thank Jace for sending the email. He is our friend in Texas. Now I got the last one, and this is from Old Soul. She always sends great emails, and it's a long one, but she always has a lot to say, and I'm always happy to hear about it. Old Soul says, thanks for reading my email yesterday with the domestic violence information. If it helped just one person, it's worth it. Thank you. I'm watching the Trump civil trial and my blood is boiling. We need cameras in the courtroom so Americans, in particular, his supporters, need to be able to hear and see the truth for themselves. Why is he allowed to stand in front of the courtroom and lie his butt off? Before the start of court, before each break, after each break, before each lunch, after each lunch, and at the end of each day, Trump is welcomed by a sea full of cameras and reporters recording his many lies as he threatens the DA, threatens the prosecutors, and threatens the Trump. Trump actually verbally attacked the law clerk today. He posted her Instagram page while court was in session during witness testimony. How's he even allowed to use his phone during court? Unbelievable. He lied to his supporters, saying this poor law clerk is Chuck Schumer's girlfriend. Zero regards for her safety and reputation. This woman is a private citizen being drugged into the world of MAGA extremists. She doesn't have security protecting her and her family. Now she's put in a position to have to worry about her safety and herself and her family. He was literally triggered because part of her job function is to speak to the judge. The most mind-boggling thing about what he's doing is it doesn't have the respect and decency to at least do this outside the courthouse. At a bare minimum, he should wait until he's outside on the steps before doing this crap. That's what any other defendant would do, but no, not Trump. He's doing this crap inside the courthouse, literally right outside the door of the courtroom within earshot of the judge. How many Americans does he have to get to put in harm's way before someone in a position of power says this is enough and lock his butt up? The DAs have round-the-clock security. The prosecutors have round-the-clock security. The judges have round-the-clock security. You know who doesn't have round-the-clock security? Us. The jurors don't have security, and neither does the employees of the court. We are left to fend for ourselves as he winds up his supporters and sends them out in the public to do his bidding. How are we supposed to live and function with MAGA's consent, threats, and attacks? I saw the judge made Trump delete the post about the law clerk, but that's pointless because once it's on the internet, it's there for life. I'm not on any social media other than YouTube, and I saw the post. So what did it make him? What good did it do making him remove it? What kind of punishment or deterrent is that? I don't swear, and my daughter rarely does. Every now and again, while driving, she'll let the S word slip out. You mean like shit? Or she'll drop the F bomb when stumping a toe or something like that. In psychology, they remove the word crazy from their vocabulary. She doesn't watch politics the way we do. She looks at body language, voice inflection, stuff like that. Last night, sitting in the living room watching Trump throw a temper tantrum before leaving for lunch, I looked at her and asked her, "What's going on inside Trump's brain?" Said he's probably seething and boiling inside, having to sit there and watch this play out, unable to do anything about it. That could be why he's exploding every time he leaves the courtroom. She didn't say anything, so like I'm like, "Hey doc, what say you?" She takes her glasses off, looks me dead in the eyes and says, "Mom, that motherfucker is crazy. Boomer, you could have knocked me over with a feather because that is completely out of character for her. I have never in all of her 24 years heard her speak of another person in such a way. Her natural nature is empathy and compassion for others, especially those struggling with mental health. As a teen mother, I have had pleasure of growing up with this intelligent, bright, caring, and inspirational human being who adds value to this world and contributes to her community. She's been a part of my life for so long I can't remember what it was like before her. I know my baby better than anyone, and I can assure you when she says someone's crazy, you can bet the farm that person is crazy. I'm not sure what we can do as citizens to eradicate Trump from society, but something needs to be done. So far, the only thing the courts are willing to do is give bond conditions and minor gag orders. The courts might as well wipe their butts with bond conditions and gag orders because Trump openly violates them within hours. In fact, he's probably in violation if his most recent order by the time you read this email. The man just doesn't care. These orders are equivalent of telling a toddler, "Okay, you keep misbehaving and I'm going to give you a stern talking to." It's in one ear and right out the other with Trump. He keeps escalating because he's reckless, he's dangerous, he doesn't have regard for anyone's safety except his own. He's unhinged and he's acting like a caged animal backed into a corner. It's only a matter of time before something tragic happens at his behest. By sitting idly by, Trump continued assaults and destruction lay squarely at the feet of those in the positions of power to stop it, but choose not to act and keep us safe. They are putting Trump's selfish interest and antics above the other 330.9 million people living in this country. They swore an oath to this country, not to one single man. This needs to stop, and they can't continue to allow his dangerous behavior. Forcing the rest of us to live this way goes against the sworn oaths, and it should not be allowed, period, full stop. Boomer, thanks for letting me vent, and thanks for all that you do, old soul. Yes, I've seen comb overs before. I get it. What I don't get is Trump walking around with a comb over in the front, top, middle, and back of his head. He's not fooling anyone. How far does he expect a few strands of hair from one side of his head to stretch? There's a difference between a comb over and a full wrap around. LOL, old soul. Yeah, I know what you mean. I saw a picture. Somebody took a picture of the back of his head. I don't know if it was photoshopped or something, but there was clearly an open bald spot in the back of his head. And I got to think if it's real and he saw it, lives in his shit. Now, regarding his attack of this court clerk, you're absolutely right. She doesn't have protection. And this is akin to what they did to those election workers down in Georgia. This judge did give a pretty stern partial gag order And as you said, he'll probably violate that order today. So it will be interesting to see what this judge does. It's a little different situation. It's a lawsuit. This judge is obviously protective of his staff. And if he does it again, he may just act accordingly. Everybody's walking on eggshells to make Donald Trump behave. But here's what you need to know. Every day he's breaking down a little bit more. You can see it in his face. He's getting the punishment he deserves. And this is just the appetizer. He's going to struggle every day he sits in that courtroom, and every day he sits in every other courtroom. His life is going to be nothing but courtrooms henceforth until the day he dies. This man is going to be destroyed financially. He's going to be destroyed emotionally, and he's done. He has no hope at this point. All right. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll check out some of the current news that was going on. So let's just take this break, and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast, part 2 of today's show. A lot of news to talk about. It was a busy day yesterday. And of course, the big news was about Kevin McCarthy. Representative Kevin McCarthy of California had his speaker's gavel taken away Tuesday by a vote of the House of Representatives. A majority of House lawmakers, including all Democrats and a handful of Republicans, backed a resolution by Representative Matt Gaetz to declare the Speaker's office vacant. The vote was 216 to 210. And as I told you earlier, I'm very surprised by this. I thought that Matt Gaetz would have a tough time getting the 218 votes. And actually, he didn't need 218 votes this time. It was 214 because there were some missing representatives. But I was surprised. I didn't think the reasonable-minded Republicans or the Democrats would allow this to happen. I mean, it seemed to make more sense to keep him there because he's doing nothing. He's kind of a useful idiot. He always caves in to Joe Biden. So in that regard, it would be beneficial for the Democrats to keep him there. But some of the Democrats were asked, and they said, we're not going to save Kevin McCarthy. And the reason why is because he can't be trusted. He lied to Biden. He lied to Matt Gaetz and the Freedom Caucus. He is a slippery, slimy piece of shit. And nothing good was going to happen as long as he's there. I think the Democrats, too, are looking at this. If the Republicans want to turn their caucus into chaos, the chaos caucus, they want to do that and make themselves look foolish between now and 2024, have at it. Problem is it's going to be hard to get much done with the chaos we have in the Republican Party. But I think that there are reasonable Republicans that are very upset at this point. They know how embarrassing this is to the Republican Party, and they've got to start feeling like they are doomed in 2024. They've really got nothing to campaign on. The one thing they always campaigned on was overturning Roe v. Wade, already been done. It's working against them. So now what did they talk about? All the things they've accomplished. I loved hearing the Republicans when they were debating this vote before it happened, talking about all the great things that Kevin McCarthy has done. And one guy even said, the greatest Speaker of the House ever. Please, motherfucker. Are you serious? You see, Republicans will say anything and make up any kind of shit just to support their narrative. Now, the House will remain effectively leaderless until it elects a new speaker, though McCarthy can still win his job back. With McCarthy's ouster, the House enters uncharted territory. The mechanism used by Gaetz to engineer McCarthy's fall has never successfully been used before. This is the first time. Now, the House will have to hold another series of votes to determine a new speaker, and there is nothing to prevent McCarthy from running again if he wants to. Now, McCarthy has already said he's not running again. And I got to be honest, if I'm Kevin McCarthy going through the shit he did for the last 9 months, he's got to be thinking, you know what? I'm just going to be done with this. This is a no-win situation. Maybe I'm glad I'm out of this shit. And Representative Ryan Zinke of Montana said he expects that to happen. He says, I don't think McCarthy is going to give up. He hasn't given up before, and the overwhelming majority of the conference agrees with the path he set forward. Now, the only way I can see that happening at this point, and I could be wrong because I'm wrong frequently, Kevin McCarthy says he's not going to run. And maybe that's a heavy weight off his back. Maybe he doesn't want to. He's had enough. He's got his ass kicked long enough, and I get that. But what happens if they can't find somebody else to fill the position? Somebody that can get the votes to get put in there. That's conceivable. Now, they said they're going to take some time off in the midst of trying to come up with a budget. They've got 45 days now, 42 days, and now they're just going to take the week off until next Wednesday before they even vote on a new Speaker of the House. But what happens if they go 15 votes, 20 votes, 100 votes, and they can't find anybody? Might they be stuck going back to Kevin McCarthy, begging him to run again because they think he'd be the closest person to get voted in? And then if that happened, what would Matt Gaetz do? The Republican Party is such a fucking mess. It's crazy. Representative Tim Burchett, who voted in favor of ousting McCarthy, said he had some ideas in mind for a replacement, but declined to give details. He did say positive things about Steve Scalise and Tom Emmer of Minnesota, the second and third ranking members of the House leadership, whose names have been floated by Gaetz. Emmer has said he's not interested in taking McCarthy's place. That's good because Emmer's a piece of shit too, and I can see why he wouldn't take it. I mean, let's be honest, with a slim majority between now and 2024 and probably getting kicked out in 2024, why would you want that job? Steve Scalise, he's the second most powerful in the House for the Republicans, but Steve's got some problems too. He was just diagnosed with cancer. I would think you'd be able to find somebody that can serve out the term without the possibility. I mean, you talk about Joe Biden being too old and he might die. Let's talk about Steve Scalise with cancer. I don't know to what extent he has cancer, but who's to say Steve Scalise doesn't last longer than Joe Biden? He may not. Now, all those people are very honorable men, and they never lied to me and belittled my beliefs either, Burchett said. They're good guys. They didn't pick on me. Well, give them a little power and they'll fuck with your head. Tuesday's vote followed a dramatic debate on the floor exclusively between a small group of hardline House Republicans, led by Gaetz and the anti-McCarthy side, and Representative Tom Cole in favor of McCarthy. Gaetz and his allies accused McCarthy of being untrustworthy and too willing to fold to Democrats when the pressure is on. I believe that's a pretty good characterization. Matt Gaetz said, chaos is Speaker McCarthy. Speaking from the Democratic side of the chamber floor, Gaetz gestured toward McCarthy's supporters and the lawmakers around him, saying that what they all had in common was that McCarthy had told them things he didn't really mean and never intended to live up to. It's exactly what he did. He told Joe Biden lies, and he told the Freedom Caucus lies, because there was no way to bring these two entities together. He had no option but to lie. McCarthy did not make a speech defending his tenure, but he presented supporters with a broad ideological swath of his conference. The overwhelming majority of my party supports the speaker we elected, Cole said. Democrats who supported McCarthy's ouster as a bloc stayed silent throughout the debate, except to mockingly laugh when one of McCarthy's supporters claimed he was one of the best speakers in history. Yeah, that was a good one. I got a chuckle out of that as well. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. The thing about it is, we don't know what's going to happen. The Democrats don't know what's going to happen. But the worst part of it, the fucking Republicans don't even know what's going to happen. They're just kind of riffing here. And we're running short on time on the budget. We've got the presidential election coming up in just over a year. It's the Republicans are not in a good place, and I think anybody with a reasonable mind understands that, and they should be nervous. Now, Old Soul brought up the situation with Donald Trump. Of course, the trial for the Letitia James lawsuit has gone on. Well, this will be the third day. I don't know if Donald Trump is showing up today or not. I presume he is. But he's been there for the last 2 days. And of course, he sits there all puffy and red and orange and goofy fucking looking. He's trying to be a tough guy. I don't know how he does it, to be perfectly honest with you. He's hyperactive. I don't know how he sits still for that long a period of time. That may account for why he goes out in the halls and during breaks and starts spewing this ridiculous shit. Well, the shit he did regarding the judge's staff, particularly the court clerk, the judge didn't miss that. He heard that. And it's really weird, too, that Donald Trump would go after the judge. This is a bench trial, meaning there's no jury. The only person that making decisions about Donald Trump are that judge. Now, I'm not the most brilliant guy in the world, but if I've got one person that holds my future in his hands, I don't know, I'm just not going to piss him off. But apparently Donald Trump has a better idea. He must be playing 3D chess or some shit. The New York judge overseeing Donald Trump's civil fraud case has issued a limited gag order on the indicted ex-presidents after the defendant publicly disparaged one of the judge's law clerks and posted her photo. This morning, one of the defendants posted to his social media account a disparaging, untrue, and personally identifying post about a member of my staff, Judge Arthur Engoron said on Tuesday, the second day of Trump's trial. The judge's comments are referring to a post Trump made on Truth Social earlier that day, disparaging Engoron's principal law clerk, Allison Greenfield. The post included a photo of Greenfield with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer at an event for the clerk's campaign for a judgeship in the Manhattan Civil Court. Donald Trump said, Schumer's girlfriend, Allison R. Greenfield, is running this case against me. Trump said in the post, how disgraceful. This case should be dismissed immediately. Nice try, Donnie. But the judge was not having it. Engoron said that he had warned Trump a day earlier about making such comments, but the defendant ignored him. Trump's post was later deleted after Engoron ordered it so on Tuesday, according to the judge. I guarantee you, Donald Trump didn't delete it. One of his lawyers had it done. He goes on to say personal attacks on members of my court staff are unacceptable, inappropriate, and I won't tolerate them in any circumstances, Engoron said. Failure to abide by this order will result in serious sanctions. And I know we've heard this from Judge Chutkin and McAfee and such, but I think this is a little different situation. These are members of his staff. He has a responsibility to protect them, given the positions they have. I don't think Engoron's going to accept this for too long. If Donald Trump does, in fact, violate that order today or tomorrow, it'll be interesting to see what Engoron does, but I think he will definitely do something. Engoron goes on to say, consider this statement a gag order forbidding all parties from posting, emailing, or speaking publicly about any of my staff. Trump, his adult sons, and his businesses are being sued up to $250 million. And it's not looking good for Donald Trump. Donald Trump likes to put on a strong winning face when he's out in the halls, but it is not going fucking well. He's in some serious trouble at this point, and he's not going to win this. I mean, we know Engoron has already decided that he is liable for the fraud. There's a few other issues that he needs to go over, but he's lost this case already. His companies are going to be dissolved. He's not going to get income from them anymore. It's just a matter of what kind of fine he's going to get. I know Letitia James has asked for $250 million, but he inflated his personal wealth by $3.2 billion. It's going to be more than $250 million, and it might be substantially more than $250 million. It might be 500, 750, maybe even $1 billion. Whatever it is, Donnie Trump cannot fucking afford it. I guarantee you this. Now, Michael Cohen, the former attorney to Donald Trump, predicted on Tuesday that the former president would violate his newly imposed gag order by Wednesday morning, this morning. We'll see if that's true. He was asked by MSNBC host Katie Phang, how quickly will Donald Trump violate this gag order? Cohen said, probably before we all wake up. You know, the problem with Donald is he's like a petulant child. As soon as you tell him you cannot do this, he's going to figure out a way to do it. It becomes his nature. If you tell him no, he wants to turn around and say, I can do whatever I want. I'm more important. I'm bigger. I'm stronger than you. I'm going to do anything I want. He's absolutely right. That's something that Donald Trump has done all of his fucking life. He goes on to say, I would like to have seen from Judge Engoron what type of penalties that he would impose. Rest assured, before this trial is over, there are going to be multiple violations by Donald Trump because, again, he can't help himself. And you know what? It's more than just the clerk or the staff of the court. We've already seen now. He's already done it to Fonnie Willis. He's already done it to Tish James. He's done it to Alvin Bragg. He's done it to Jack Smith. He's done it to myself. He's done it to the whole slew of individuals. And keep in mind, Judge Chutkin has a meeting with Donald Trump's lawyers on October 16th. We're talking, 12 days from now? And I'm sure she's going to have something to say of Donald Trump violating her orders. She's a pretty serious woman and a good judge, and she's been patient with Donald Trump, but it never pays to be patient with Donald Trump. So I expect something to come out of that will throw a scare into Donald Trump. Cohen went on to compare Trump to a mob boss and said, let me tell you what he's doing. He's sending a message. He concluded these MAGA maniacs who are reading into what Trump is saying, even though it may not be as overt as you think, they're reading it the way they want to. And they put your life, they put your family's life, they put everyone in danger. That's what Donald is doing. He's sending one of those mob-like codes in order to obstruct justice and witness tamper. But the problem is nobody's reacting to it. You know, we've seen it every time he's been indicted. And in this case, there haven't been hordes of Donald Trump fans out there causing a ruckus. They're not showing up because they're scared to fucking death that they're going to end up in jail. And the fact of the matter is, they probably are right. Now, Judge Engoron placed a gag order on Trump Tuesday after the president posted the picture of Engoron's principal law clerk. And Donald Trump said this, why is Judge Engoron's principal law clerk, Allison R. Greenfield, palling around with Chuck Schumer? Schumer's girlfriend, Allison R. Greenfield, is running this case against me. How disgraceful. This case should be dismissed immediately. Well, Donnie, that was a nice try, but it's not going to work, and the judge isn't going to allow you to continue to do this. Cool story, bro, but it's not true, and you're a fucking idiot. Now, while Trump eventually deleted the post, Judge Engoron responded with a gag order and declared that personal attacks on members of my court staff are unacceptable and not appropriate. So we'll see when Donald Trump violates that order, and he will. When he does, let's see how tough Judge Engoron is at that point. Now, Judge Engoron also straightened out Donald Trump. I know this kind of worried some people because people will hear Donald Trump say something and many people will believe it, even though it's absolute bullshit. Donald Trump came out of court on Monday, I think. Yeah, it was following the court hearing on Monday. Trump told reporters that Engoron had reversed himself by rejecting financial transactions that took place earlier than 2014. He said Engoron had decided they were outside the statute of limitations. That sounds kind of ominous. But then when you think about it, Letitia James, you don't think she would have considered that if that was an issue? Well, Justice Arthur Engoron cleared up confusion on Tuesday after former President Donald Trump claimed that 80% of the fraud case against him had been taken off the table. A lot of people heard that. A lot of people were nervous about that shit. Donald Trump said, we very much appreciate the judge's decision today, or his statement today on the statute of limitation, which is a very big thing, Trump explained on Monday. The Messengers of Publications, Adam Classfield, was in the courtroom on Tuesday when Engoron clarified his statements. And this is where Donald Trump fucked up. The judge said this: every use of a false statement or financial condition in business starts the statute of limitations running again, the judge explained. Engoron has previously called defense arguments of the statute of limitations a bizarre, invented, inverted form of the relation back doctrine. So now let me explain to you what that means. If it was one instance of Donald Trump's crime and it happened before 2014, theoretically, it would be beyond the statute of limitations. But every time he broke those same crimes, it started the clock over. We know these crimes are at least up to 2021, so statute of limitations isn't a thing because these are all similar or tied together or the same. That means even if it was done in 2011, it's not beyond the statute of limitations because when he did it in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, when he did it every year, it just started the clock running. So he's got a long time before he runs out the statute of limitations. And it's not going to happen before the end of this case. You have to wonder if Donald Trump really believed that, if that's what he believed, because right about now, he's a disappointed motherfucker. Now, there was one bit of information that may be the most devastating to Donald Trump, and you may have, it may be hard for you to understand this, but if you understand Donald Trump's emotional state, you'll understand. He's got a lawsuit working right now that's going to pretty much strip him of all his money, property, and power. He's got 91 felonies waiting to go to court for. He's going to end up in jail. But this one thing may be the biggest thing fucking with his head at this point. Donald Trump has reportedly been booted from the country's most exclusive club. Trump is now $300 million short to qualify for the Forbes 400 ranking of America's richest people, according to Forbes. Trump has relentlessly lied to reporters for decades in his attempts to boost himself higher in the list. His net worth is down more than 600 million from a year ago. The biggest reason, Truth Social, his social media business, Trump once envisioned a significant percentage of the country logging on to the platform. Forbes reported that, but that never happened. Roughly 6.5 million have signed up for it so far, about 1% of the total on X or Twitter. Trump's 90% stake in Truth Social's parent company has plummeted in value from an estimated 730 million to less than 100 million. After losing value are Trump's office buildings, which are down by an estimated 170 million. Forbes add that it's not all doom and gloom for Trump businesses. As fewer people spend time in the office, more are goofing off on the golf course. That's especially good news for Trump National Doral, the former president's most valuable golf property, purchased for 150 million in 2012. Whatever Forbes says he's worth now, I'd be willing to bet that's bullshit. I mean, because they're taking it from documentation from Donald Trump, and what we know about the documents from Donald Trump is they're all fucking lies. It's all bullshit. If Donald Trump has $400 million stashed away somewhere, I'd be really surprised. That guy goes through money like he goes through diapers. Comes in, gets dirty, and they throw it out. Donald Trump is not worth that much money. And in this court case, I'm willing to bet his ranking is going to drop even more, because this court case is going to expose all of Donald Trump's financial situations. Everything Donald Trump has said about his financial condition has been a lie, been a joke. His entire career, he's been nothing more than a fraud. He started things out with Dad giving him $400 million. I got to be honest, if he gave me $400 million and I didn't do anything really stupid, I'd be a multimillionaire by now. I'd still have the 400 million. Donald Trump lost that in a heartbeat. Then he got some influx of money, presumably from Russia or maybe Saudi Arabia. And then he got propped up again. And of course, he promptly lost all that shit too. Donald Trump is an absolute joke. He's not a businessman. He's not wealthy. He's not smart. He's not talented in any way. And this court case, this trial with Judge Engoron and Letitia James, is going to expose it all to everybody. Everybody's going to know. And like I said, him not making this list and his financial disasters being exposed, that may be the one thing that damages him emotionally more than anything else, even more than the thought of going to prison. He's a narcissist. The most important thing to Donald Trump is how people perceive him. All of who he is tied to money, power, and property. When we all come to find out and have proven to us that he doesn't have the money, the properties will be gone, and that will end any power, any perceived power that he might have. He will be nothing more than a shell of a shell, because he was never a full person. He was never a real person. It was all a joke. It was all a fraud. And a lot of people got taken in by it. And a lot of people got taken for a ride financially because of it. They listened to what he said and they believed it. And that's one of the biggest problems I have these days. I will talk to other Democrats and they'll be frightened about something and they'll tell me why they're frightened about it. And I go, where did you hear about this? I mean, what's your source on this? And they'll say, well, it's around everywhere. I can tell you what the source is. The source is Donald Trump, and then it gets spread, and then people accept it as if it's real. It's not. Anything or anybody that tells you that Donald Trump is a successful businessman, a billionaire, it's all fake. It's all a lie. We're seeing the evidence now. And there's no way he can spin it or divert or distract. There's no way he can. and he knows he's cornered. That's why when he sits in that courtroom, he looks like he's angry, but he's actually scared shitless, which is kind of a misnomer because he's probably sitting in his own shit at that point. But this will all come to pass. And that's why I told you this particular court case, even though it's not criminal, even though he won't go to jail over it, it may be the most devastating thing to him because it will take away all things that he believes makes him Donald Trump. Money, power, property, prestige. He will have none of it when this is done. By the time he gets to his criminal trials, he will be a broken man. I mean, even more so than he already is. Donald Trump is incapable of holding his temper. He's doing all right now. He lets it go on the breaks during this civil trial, but there's going to come a point where he implodes and or explodes, and he's going to embarrass himself in the process. Nothing is going to work for Donald Trump, and it's going to drive him nuts. As a narcissist, he is the consummate control freak, and he's in a position he's never been in before. He can control nothing, and it's driving him fucking nuts. You can see it in his face when he's sitting at that desk prior to the start of a trial. Now, Donald Trump isn't scheduled to testify for a few weeks, I don't think. They're looking at this case to go as much as 3 months. So this is going to be absolute torture for Donald Trump. And when he testifies, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Will he plead the fifth? Well, if he pleads the fifth, that's not going to help him in a civil case. It's probably going to hurt him. But if he truly believes there's some criminal aspects that he wants to avoid talking about, he may plead the fifth. And this is why I've said this. I've said this a number of times, and nobody else has ever said this. I could be wrong, but common sense tells me this could happen. Once we get done with this trial and Donald Trump loses the lawsuit, and after the fact that Alvin Bragg convicted CFO Alan Weisselberg and convicted the Trump organization of 17 felony fraud charges, don't be surprised if Alvin Bragg goes to his back pocket and pulls out a criminal indictment of Donald Trump, because he certainly did commit crimes, and a lot of it will be exposed in this trial. It would be hard for Alvin Bragg not to indict him on criminal charges, because those criminality and corruption that Donald Trump committed will be in front of everybody's face. If he doesn't indict him, a lot of people are going to be asking questions. So we'll see what happens. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. And to the emailer who was worried about going too long, I went long on this one. Anyhow, I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.